Please pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. I wonder how many of you have seen the movie The Never-Ending Story. A few? Probably quite a while ago. It's been around for a while. In this film, based on the novel by Michael Ende, a young boy named Bastian ducks into a bookstore on his way to school to avoid bullies. In the bookstore, he stumbles upon this book and he sneaks it away from the store. And the book is called The Never-Ending Story. Bastian begins reading this book in the school attic. The novel is about Fantasia, a fantasy land that is threatened by the nothing, a darkness that destroys everything it touches. The kingdom needs the help of a human child to survive. When Bastian reads the description of himself in the book, he begins to wonder if Fantasia is real and if it needs him in order to survive. It is a classic story of good and evil, of love and fear. It is a story of what it is to be human, to be called to engage in some greater work. It is the story of the universe. So how do we, in the 21st century, choose to understand the universe, the nature of life? Albert Einstein said, "There are only two ways to live your life. Two ways. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle." I choose to live, and sometimes I struggle with it, but I try very hard to live as if everything is a miracle. I choose to see love as the very heart and wisdom of the universe. And thus the whole universe and all of life is filled with the presence of love, the presence of God. I choose to pay attention to 14 billion years of love's evolution, of life, death, and resurrection, continually and always towards greater complexity, towards more beauty, and ultimately towards more love. This is why I see faith as trusting in the way of love, trusting the universe, rather than seeing faith as believing things about love and fearing the universe. I want to quote Michael Dowd from Thank God for Evolution, and I've quoted this particular piece before, but I think it is just so important to how we understand faith. And in that book, which we did our study on, he said, "Faith and trust are synonyms, the same. Faith and trust are the same. Faith and beliefs are antonyms, are opposites. Faith and beliefs are opposites. Faith as trust," he says, "enables us to move beyond beliefs about things born of language, and thus to receive God's or love's guidance directly as we pursue our great work, doing our part to better the world in ways big or very small, to leave a positive legacy that lives on after we are gone." This is the work that Bastian is called to in the Never-Ending Story. This is the work that Jesus was called to, and that calls to us every single day of our lives. This is the nature of a universe that is worthy of our trust and from which I believe all hope comes. The dandelion seed in the story I read the children this morning was afraid to let go, afraid to trust the universe, until it became part of the wind and was carried away. The dandelion seed was propelled by the breath of life itself. And in letting go, came to see the world was bigger than the seed had ever imagined. Yes, more frightening. Yes, sometimes more lonely, but so much more beautiful. It wondered where it belonged, and only by finally giving in to the universe, giving in to the earth, it found roots and grew into the life it was meant to live. It never would have grown if it had hung and clung tight to that old stump of a flower. The dandelion seed, by trusting the universe, discovered it was part of the earth, an intimate part of the entire cosmos, and passed on its wisdom to the new generation of seeds. That story ends with, "Let go, and you will see." Trust. Thomas Berry, in his book, The Great Work, says, "The nobility of our lives, the nobility of each of our lives, depends on the manner in which we come to understand and fulfill our assigned role. Yet we must trust that those powers that assign our role must in the same act bestow upon us the ability to fulfill this role. We must trust that we are cared for and guided by the same powers that bring us into being. For me, this is the source and the wellspring of hope. Rather than hope coming out of my fears or out of my anxieties and worries, it wells up out of a willingness to trust deeply, trust really deeply, to trust in the eternal presence of love, the God presence that is at the heart of the universe and is in the heart of each and every one of us. This, it seems to me, is the message embedded in the passage we heard today from Luke. Jesus saying, in the midst of the angst of life, in the midst of the violence of the world, in the midst of all their fears, he says that the fig tree and all trees, and actually all weeds too, will bring forth new life. The dandelion seed will survive life and death and new life because this is the way of the universe. The Never-Ending Story movie ends with Bastian returning to the bookstore to confess to the owner that he not only stole the book, but has since lost it as well. He is told by the bookstore owner that the book is destined to be lost and is now most likely repeating its never-ending cycle by moving into the hands of someone else. But, the bookkeeper says, that is another story and shall be told in another time. We honor and celebrate the life of Jesus because he understood the wisdom of the universe. He lived this deep trust. He lived the way of love. It is his part in the never-ending story of hope that draws us here in our time and place, draws us to this gathering, into this moment. And I know that our own learning to trust life, to trust the universe, will allow us to embrace the never-ending story of hope, not just in this Advent time, but through all the days of our lives. Amen.